What is going on, sim racers? Welcome back to another Shut Up and Drive It video. Today we're going to be working on drift fundamentals. Primarily we're going to be working on donuts and figure eights, and then just kind of talking through some of the more beginner techniques and fundamentals on drifting. So if you're looking to start and not really sure where to begin, this is going to be the video for you, so stay tuned. If this is something new to you, leave a comment down below and I can make a separate video on how to install Content Manager and get that going. You can pretty much select the same things in the in-game menu, but we're going to be using this primarily. So if you're following along and you're a little lost, that may be why. So getting started here, I recommend the E30 Drift Car. It comes with the game, so it's, you can pretty much, like, you don't have to worry about going out and finding it or anything like that. And then also the drift track that comes with the game. There's lots of good lines there to work on some of these techniques, and then even some of the more advanced stuff as well. So let's go ahead and get started. All that being said, if you wanted to, you could substitute in a different car, different track, but make sure that it's got some of these elements that we're looking for here. That way you can follow along. Okay, so most important thing when you first get into the car, click on the wrench here and always check your car settings, because this car is a great example. It's a drift car, but you're on semi-slicks. I always bump it to street. You can drift on semi-slicks, but it's a little more advanced, so if you're just starting off, street is kind of the way to go. And then I like to kind of just check everything here. Electronics, sometimes traction controls here. This car doesn't have it, so we don't have to worry about that. And then just kind of get an idea of how it's set up. Alright, so car is good, we're good, so let's go ahead and proceed through the pits, and we're going to work on our donuts first. So donuts, they don't sound as much fun as, tandeming or anything like that, but I think it's absolutely a technique that you should perfect first, because it helps you figure out the balance of your car and work on what you need to, be comfortable drifting. So the idea behind drifting, I'm going to start kind of at the top here in case you're really new to this. You see how when we're going around this circle here, I'm turned into it, and we're going the direction that the front wheels are pointing. So keep that in mind, because it's more intuitive turning through here, and if we want to go tighter, we turn tighter. That's typically how standard driving steering works. When drifting, it's the same, but you're not going to necessarily turn right to go right. So for example here, we're turning left, and we're making a little turn to the right, but we're still turned pretty hard to the left to go right. And why is that? It's because of the wheel speed, right? We're building energy at the rear of the car that's kind of forcing it to, like, crab walk. And what we're doing with the front of the car isn't breaking traction. It's actually just rolling along with whatever the rear is doing, right? So we are aiming the front wheels where we want to go still. It's just, your steering angle is a little different. And we're using turns to the right here to kind of correct the overall angle of the car. So you can dial in more angle by doing sharper turns, and you can go shallower, by kind of steering out of it. So with that explanation there, what you really are focusing on is finding that balance point. Like right there, I wasn't spinning out or anything, right? So to do that, you want to find, this is going to be a little difficult to find, like, a kind of even throttle, so you may need to pulse it a little bit getting started, because you don't want to just bang rev limiter. If you bang rev limiter, sometimes it works for a little bit, but it's really inconsistent. See, like, I'm actually just kind of falling out of it there, because when you're banging rev limiter, see, well, this car doesn't do it as much, but the tack is, pegging, and your power is doing the same thing, so you're not getting that consistent power line, right? So I like to clutch kick initiate and then steer into it. Oop. And you want to find your balance point here, right? So doing a nice wide donut, and once you get kind of the hang of it, look for your lines on the ground, your skid marks, and try to follow those, right? Because that'll give you a pretty good idea of, you know, the radius you're comfortable at, right? So do a couple of those, kind of, you know, take a look at my hand and foot movement here. I think my foot movement's slightly delayed on this. I'm gonna check back in editing. But you kind of get an idea. See, I'm not like just pegging it. I'm trying to be smooth with both movements. If you're jerky, it doesn't really help you. See, it actually pulled me out of drift there. So you want to be smooth, and that way you can also really feel out the balance of the car, right? So if that little circle there is kind of a pain, or you feel more comfortable going to the left, you can definitely go here. And this actually has a nice inside line to follow on the rumble strip. So let's do that a couple times. You can kind of watch my hand and foot movement again. Now, there will be people who tell you, you know, there's very specific hand placement, everything. I say a good habit to follow is just have one hand that follows the wheel. And then you can pretty much place it wherever you're comfortable, especially getting started. You'll develop better habits as you go. Straighten out a little bit there. Whoops. Oh, we're in first. That's why. I recommend second gear doing this. You can stay in first to kind of get started if you want to, but second will help you build some skills controlling the car a little bit more. It's not overwhelming in this car because it doesn't have too much power. But, you know, you can kind of pulse it, and you have a little bit more room for error, because if you start kind of going too slow, this car does have enough power where it'll, you know, rotate back out, but it's not gonna just loop you out right away. So second gear, I think, is the gear, especially for this bigger one. But what you're really looking for is that balance where you are controlling the direction of the car with the front wheels, but keeping the angle by increasing or decreasing the wheel speed at the back of the car. And it sounds probably more complicated than it really is. Once you get a feel for it, you're gonna start finding that you don't really think about like, oh, like what is my wheel speed? How fast am I going for this to work? You're just gonna kind of feel it. And having good force feedback settings to the wheel is absolutely essential. So if you need to do that, make sure you check out a previous video on how to set up your wheel. I created one recently for the T300, and we have another one on the channel for the Fanatec CSL. Both of those tutorials will work for the higher and lower grade wheels of each brand. You just might need to adjust the gain. That'll be the only thing. So yeah, you know, we'll go through this in second gear because I wasn't thinking about being in first gear. But the big thing here while you are learning this is you're gonna have corrections, right? You can kind of see me doing them. I'm working the wheel a little bit, you know, clutching in, maybe even some left foot braking. You're sharpening your tools, you know, in your toolbox for how to correct your drifts, because that's going to be essential, right? When you're drifting, conditions are going to change, tires will heat up, you may be tandeming with someone at some point, and you know they might drive a different line than what you're expecting. So you're going to want to be comfortable in correcting your drift, right? So, you know, if you see that, oh, you're going a little wide, like there, I just let off the throttle a little bit. A big thing you're going to want to practice is left foot braking, right? And left foot braking, if you use it correctly, you can actually do some stuff like, I'll show you. So if you apply like a medium amount of brake, you can kind of cheat your way. I wouldn't even say cheating. You can work your way into more controlled donuts. And if this is what you need to do to get started and to feel comfortable with it, that is totally fine. Just make sure this isn't how you drift all the time, because you'll be really slow. And you know, if you're drifting by yourself or just drifting for fun, there's nothing wrong with that either. But if you're looking to, you know, start tandeming with people, you're gonna get left in the dust if this is what you do. So find your happy medium. You know, do what you gotta do. Drift to the turn. You can use things like left foot brake to kind of rotate the front of the car inwards, get yourself some more angle. If you have too much angle, you can clutch in and reinitiate, and you'll be in a much better place. So I'm gonna go over to one other spot here. Once you feel good with the wider donuts, this is a little more advanced as far as donuts go, but we're gonna go over here, and as you see, there's a nice little donut box right here. So it's really easy to do this in VR. Single screen or triples is a little more difficult because it's hard to see, but this is more of a first gear, and you can practice just kind of going around this, and this will give you a lot more to work with as far as correcting, and this will be kind of more like a check on your donut skills, right? Like, I know a lot of people who are really good at drifting and they can't really do this very well. Not to say that, you know, they're not good, it's just this is a more technical technique right here as far as doing donuts. You know, just consistently going around the same spot. So give that a try if you're feeling pretty good about them, or work up to this even. And this may honestly even come easier to you. Another thing too, if you feel good one direction, try it another direction, because it doesn't seem like it'd be that different. It really is. If you work too much on drifting one direction, you'll definitely find yourself with a bias, and you want to try to work against not having that. Otherwise, you'll find yourself weaker drifting some directions than others. So let's say you did all that, you're feeling real good. Let's go back over here and we'll work on the next technique, which is figure eights. And these are going to be fairly large figure eights. So I initiate into here, work my way into this box here, and then we're going to spot our transition and work our way through. So when transitioning, it's kind of similar to doing the donuts. You're working on the balance, but it's a little different because you're changing directions, right? It'd be really easy. I'm going to see if I can demonstrate it. So when transitioning, if you're too hard on the throttle, see, we just loop out like that. And you'll probably do that a couple times while you're getting the feel for it. Don't, you know, be upset. What you want to try to find is, where is that spot in the weight transfer where you're comfortable catching the wheel, whether it be, you know, steering into it like that, kind of being a little more conservative on throttle. Some people will clutch kick into it, so like nice clutch and then reinitiate. That's fine too. If you really want to, we can handbrake into it. Just make sure you clutch in when handbraking, so it's really kind of the same as just clutch kick initiating. But this will be your next step after perfecting your donuts. Working on that transition so you can catch the weight of the rear of the car. And it's really important to have good wheel settings so that you can feel the rear of your car. That's pretty much how I know, you know, when to move the wheel and what the car is doing, because I can, through the wheel, kind of feel the weight of the rear starting to pendulum, and then, you know, you can catch it. So yeah, once you have your donuts down, work on your figure eights here, because pretty much once you get donuts and figure eights down, you can start, you know, pretty much going up to the slower turns or even some of the faster turns, and you'll be surprised at what you can actually drift through. So we'll do a couple more here so you can watch my hand and foot movement. That's kind of a bad one. We're gonna pretend we didn't do that one there. So here we'll go a little wide. Alright, and we're gonna just kind of ease out of the throttle on the transition, catch it, steer in, power on. This one's like a smoother one, so we don't have to throttle out as much. I'm gonna do one more here. Now, I'm no pro by any means. I'm just kind of showing you some of the fundamentals here. You can pretty much, you know, I think anyone would tell you that these two are one of the more important things to learn and to do. So yeah, take all of this for what it's worth. Once you get that done, I say go and find a nice line to drift all this on. you know, to get started, I would say go through this little oblong oval here, because these turns are different radiuses. You can kind of work on manjiing and transitioning after that small little straightaway there. So do a couple laps here, because see, you're gonna have to manji a bit with this car. Oh, that was way too much. To kind of get this whole thing linked, right? And this is like a nice little, you know, warm up to kind of transition into doing like bigger lines. And there's nothing wrong with doing lines like this to get, you know, the balance and to feel good doing it, because the more confident you are when drifting, the easier you're going to find it to start linking some of these more advanced lines. Alright, there we go. We're actually going to get transition in. We're going to do one more loop around here, and I'll show you a nice little variation I like to take and still kind of use part of this loop. So as you can see, I'm kind of doing things a little different each time. It depends on my angle, my speed, and that's what I mean as far as sharpening your tools in your toolbox as far as correcting drifts, because, you know, you may hit things a little differently each time. So like I said, now that we're through here, I like to clutch kick, go through there, and this is the first line I kind of came up with after I felt good. Straightened a little bit there. After I felt good drifting around in the oblong oval there. I used to call this turn the hard turn because it's really long, but it'll teach you good throttle control going through there. So then we come back through here. It's really kind of sloppy. I wasn't really doing very good while I was talking through it, so let me try to do one more. You get an idea of where you can end up after working on these techniques. Got a lot of rotation there, so that kind of bit me, but you know, you can see what to do and what not to do. So I don't know if you noticed, last time I was more on the limiter there and it straightened me out. I kind of backed it off a little and was able to keep it more in drift. So more to my point of don't bang limiter unless, you know, that's what you need to for that turn. Like if you got really low wheel speed and you need more, you can bang it for a little bit obviously, but then make sure you get back on throttle control. And mistakes like that are going to happen. Even on a pro level, you know, people will spin out, they go too wide, they overshoot turns. So don't beat yourself up, right? So that's kind of an idea on a line to work on. You know, there's plenty more here, but I say find something that you're comfortable with so you're not biting off more than you can chew. So stick to, you know, your figure eights and your donuts until you're comfy with that, and then start working on the bigger stuff. And you'll find pretty soon, you'll be surprised at the things that you can actually link together and drift. So I hope this was helpful for you. When I started drifting, I actually couldn't find anything like this. I know there's more out there now, but you know, if you're looking to drift, we're going to be doing a series on this. So make sure, give us a like so we know that we're doing a good job, and subscribe to us, because part 2 will show you some slightly more advanced techniques and fundamentals on how to start drifting and tandeming with your friends. So if you watch this whole video, we really appreciate you, and make sure you check back for part 2. Should be next Wednesday. So thank you very much, and we'll see you then. Peace.